Uh-huh.
What's your favorite scary movie?
I don't know.
You have to have a favorite. What comes to mind?
You are listening to Scream with Ryan C. Showers, the podcast for Scream fans just like you. Join Ryan every week as he takes a deep dive into the horror film series that defined the 90s and redefined the genre. Scream with Ryan C. Showers is your source for scene and quote analysis, character dissections, and the latest news about upcoming installments of the Scary Movie franchise.
I hear you like horror movies, Kirby, but do you like them as much as him?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Scream with Ryan C. Showers. I'm your host, Ryan C. Showers. Thank you for joining me for this week's episode. So this week's episode is called Agree to Disagree, and that was an episode title suggested by my friend, TJ Jones, who is the graphic design producer of Scream with Ryan C. Showers. His images have kind of revolutionized the podcast in a way on social media and given the podcast a whole new life and a whole new meaning, a whole new excitement. Like I get so excited to post his images every week. So they're very fun. So thank you, TJ, for the name. But before we get to anything else, I need to welcome my co-host here for the first little segment here. Everybody, please welcome Ashley. Hey, Ash.
Hello, Ryan.
So viewers can't see, but Ashley is wearing like a dark orange shirt. So naturally, the first thing I said to her is, "You're looking very Evermore tonight," which I mean, like, I'm a dork, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm also wearing Taylor Swift sweatpants right now.
Oh, cool. Nice. We love that. Ash, tell everybody where they can find you and your Etsy store.
So you can find me at SquirrelandSpud9 on Instagram. There you'll find a link to my Etsy store that has all the fun merch, Scream, Buffy, Taylor Swift. Hopefully I have anything that, or something that might strike your fancy. And my Instagram also doing collaborations with Brian every Wednesday. We're doing a Scream game of the week. So that's pretty fun. I'm trying to make them harder and harder as I go. And yeah, I would love to see you there.
Ashley is amazing. She's just like such a great partner for me to be able to like go through every week and do the podcast with. And as everybody knows, one of the things that we have introduced recently is we have a Taylor Swift song of the week. So before we get to the Taylor Swift song of the week, I want to just alert everybody that you're listening to this on Tuesday, like you would any other Scream with Ryan C. Showers episode. You may want to clear your schedule for podcastings. Whatever you listen to on Friday, you need to just push it back about 40 minutes this week, because Scream with Ryan C. Showers will be coming to you on Friday this week, and Scream with Ryan C. Showers will be coming to you on Friday every week. So we are kind of expanding, and Scream with Ryan C. Showers will now have 2 episodes per week that go out to the public. On Fridays, I'm planning to have like what I'm going to like coin like things I can't get to in the main show will go on Friday. So like, for instance, there was a ton of news this past week, overwhelming amount of news about Sarah Michelle Gellar, about I Know What You Did Last Summer, so, and I don't want to give up like Scream time on the main show on Tuesday for that, even though it's connected to Scream, it's tethered to Scream, Scream is in the air for these things, so that's going to happen on Friday. So this Friday, we're going to have a news segment. So it's just going to be kind of a straight news, for the most part. Ashley and I are still going to do a Taylor Swift song of the day. I don't know. We need to rename it now.
I know. I was thinking about that. I literally woke up in the middle of the night thinking about that.
Well, and Ash, just thank you for like being there with me as we kind of like sorted all of this out and made the plans. I'm really excited about expanding because there are things that I've wanted to do with the podcast for a long time. And I have to thank, one of my best friends, Jacob Randall of the Happy Horror Time podcast. He and I became very close this past year, and he really helped me think about like expanding the podcast and like doing different things with it, doing things that I wanted to do that I wasn't currently doing, and fulfilling myself like creatively in that respect. And one of those things is kind of reporting on the horror news or reacting to the news as it relates to Scream. So in addition to that, so kind of what you'll hear on Friday segments, you'll hear news, if it calls for that. I am also, longtime listeners of this podcast know I love Halloween, and I love comparing Scream and Halloween, and most of the Patreon loves Halloween. Like we did a survey, and it was like over 50% of the people said Halloween was their favorite movie besides Scream. So I want to do like what I call Hallow Scream episodes. I did the first one in in October, I think on Halloween Day, we released it. And it was really great. But just with my personal life, it didn't really work out. So we're going to be doing Hallow Scream content, meaning like taking Halloween and Scream and like doing an analysis of like both of them together. I actually have many ideas for that. We're going to be doing potential Buffy episodes on Friday. Overflow from Tuesday. Like, so if I have like a recording that doesn't necessarily fit within the main topic on Tuesday, we will transition that to Friday. And something very exciting is I would like to introduce Ryan's Reviews, which is going to be covering like potentially the big like horror release of the month. Like, so for instance, had we been doing this in January, it would have been Companion. Had we been doing this in February, it would have been Hard Eyes. Had we been doing it this past month, it would have been Drop or Sinners. So, I think that there's a lot of opportunity there. So, yeah, I'm really excited about this, and there's so much potential to kind of refine the main show to be very Scream, and then the Friday show to be Scream light, Scream adjacent, but also just very fun and like part of the universe. So, and Ash, thank you for helping me reach this point as well.
My absolute pleasure. It's been fun to brainstorm with you and to come up with see all of your ideas come to life. So.
Well, thank you. So in addition, these episodes on Friday will just be about like 40 minutes long. At least that's what I'm hoping to. Actually, Ashley and I did a test of like this the other night that I'm going to add into the episode on Friday. So you have to stay tuned for that. So there may be some additional Taylor Swift content. I don't know.
I will never apologize for it.
Me neither. I mean, like literally, like if I'm not thinking about Scream, I'm thinking about Taylor Swift. It's a sickness. I can't help it.
And we've already converted quite a few of them.
We have converted our friends. We love to make the Taylor Swift tent even bigger. And I love this like cross between Taylor Swift and Scream. I think it's so cool. And speaking of Taylor Swift and Scream, Ashley, what is the Taylor Swift song of the day?
The Taylor Swift song of the day is a classic, is Shake It Off. Yeah. Shake It Off is track 6 off of 1989, aka my favorite album of all time. This album came out in 2014 and changed my life, y'all. This was, we have the re-release, the Taylor's version that came out in 2023. And this song is just her singing about every single thing she gets criticized about and telling everybody to just shake it off. And I personally think it's a huge FU to everybody. To me, that was intentional. It was like, let me come up with like the most catchy pop song beat, the thing that's going to get stuck in the haters' heads, and let me just put it out to the world. And it's one of her biggest hits. And I will say, one of my favorite things is when somebody says, well, I'm not really a Swiftie, but I don't mind the song Shake It Off. And I find that so funny because I would say Shake It Off is probably on like the bottom of like people who really, really love Taylor Swift's catalog. It's probably on the bottom of that list. So I'm like, well, if you like that, I feel like you might like a lot of other things. But don't get me wrong. When I was at the Eras tour and Shake It Off came out, I lost my mind. Like, I was just like, it's such a fun song to be like in a crowd with. But I adore it. It's not my absolute favorite song in the entire world, but I still love her.
Well, and the thing is, like, this song, everybody knows it. I mean, it's arguably probably the most well-known Taylor Swift song out there. It's extremely catchy. It's played at all the time. Even today, it's played at events constantly. And it's kind of like a very simple song, and I think that's why it's so effective. But it's simple but catchy, and there's a lot of depth to what she's trying to say here. And I love the fact that like she even points out like people who have the audacity to claim that there's nothing in her brain. Like she literally says, "Nothing in my brain." That's what people say, and it's just like I really do enjoy Shake It Off, and it kind of ties in with the theme of this week's episode. So this week's episode, I have 2 recordings from 2 Patreons, both of whom I love. And the second Patreon you'll hear, Ashley was with me when I recorded it, and we were both howling at this recording. Josh is such a fun guy. So basically, you'll hear from my friend Lucas, and then you're going to hear from Josh Calamari. And Josh, he is very like he doesn't give a fuck, what people think of what he has to say. He says it how he thinks it is. And my friend Lucas and I, there is a thematic string here with Shake It Off, which is this idea of like, people get so bent out of shape whenever you disagree with them. They take to the comment section. I mean, who does, we know this, right? And like they try to tear you apart for disagreeing with how they perceive the world to be and how they perceive art to be. And I think like Shake It Off was like the perfect song for this week in terms of just like, like TJ put in the title, agree to disagree. Like we are allowed to have different opinions, and other people's opinions shouldn't bother you so much that you have to attack them or bring negativity into the world or invest in negativity. And I think that Shake It Off is a great example of that. Like, and Scream people, I feel like, are also very passionate about their opinions because we have such great movies, and so therefore we're extra emboldened when we're talking about this and we get extra emotional. And I think what Taylor Swift would say is just shake it off whenever people disagree with you. If you can't take that, like a lot of people don't like Scream 6, shake it off. We're talking to, Ashley's a Scream 4 person, I'm a Scream 3 person. We've shaken it off over the years. Ash, anything else you want to say about Shake It Off or this week's episode?
I completely agree with you. I think that having different opinions makes the world so much more fun. And if it's not intruding on somebody's fundamental rights as a human, I think we can all have fun with disagreeing and agreeing on all the fun things. There's plenty of fun takes in the world. And if we all had the same favorite movie and favorite artist, the world would be so incredibly boring and we'd be robots. And I think it's just so much more fun to talk about why we love things and to disagree on Team Jess or Team Logan or Team Dean. Personally, I'm Team Rory. But, it's just a lot more fun to have a nice, healthy dialogue and learn more about why somebody feels that way than to tell them they're wrong.
Exactly. So, okay, Ash, thank you so much. All right, let's go over now to the Patreons. I want to thank Phil from the Horror Project podcast. So the Horror Project podcast is this really awesome horror podcast that also comes out on Tuesdays. I love them, and I love that Phil is such a big fan. So everybody, please welcome Phil to the Patreon. Welcome a new Stab investor, Justin Weir, and Dustin Putman. So welcome, guys. I also need to thank everybody over at Patreon, especially Mama Ghostface, Carrie Tenney. I need to thank Brett Janovich, who is a Daddy Ghostface, Corey Wilson, and Stevie Shears, who are Daddy Ghostfaces. And I need to thank the rest of the Stab investors. They include Justin Weir, Josh Calamari, who you'll hear in this episode, Tamika Jones, Sam Levy, Jess Mariano, David D, Scream Queens podcast, both Josh and Justine, Joey Nabrini, aka The Vault, Mark Fiera, Gustavo Mora, PWO5, aka Philip Douglas, Josh Carr, Roy Garza, Ali, and Kevin Abner. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the next segment of Scream with Ryan C. Showers. I'm your host, Ryan C. Showers. Thank you for joining me. And I'm sitting here with one of my closest patrons in terms of, this is actually the first time we're meeting, but he is very active in like the discourse. So every time I post something or I post like an essay or something about Scream, I know I'm going to hear from him. So I'm really excited to finally like put like, a voice to all of the words that I read on my posts. So he is somebody who like faithfully listens to the podcast every week, and it's just so cool to meet him. So everybody, please welcome Lucas. Hey, Lucas.
Hi, Ryan. How are you?
I'm great. How about you?
I'm good. I'm glad to be here.
Well, thank you for coming. So, man, and I guess I need to just say thank you for all you do to engage with my content. I really appreciate it.
Oh no, I love listening to the podcast and everything you post. It's just it's kept the Scream community alive in a tumultuous, is probably the best word to use, time.
I appreciate that because like, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but like there was a point.
Toot it away.
But like, for real, like between like the time of like of November 23 through the time that it was announced that Nev and Kevin were coming back, I mean, there were not only like, if I think that the Scream fandom could have naturally died, and there were people who wanted it to die. I mean, like they were aggressively campaigning for it to cease. And it was really important to me. And I think, and not to disrespect anybody else, but there weren't as many people willing to speak up and talk about Scream 7 and look forward to the greatness of what we could get with Scream 7 at that time. And I will take the credit for keeping the fandom alive during that time.
You should. It's rightfully earned.
Well, Lucas, what are your thoughts on Scream 7?
I hate it. Don't want it. No, I'm just kidding. I'm
boycotting?
So
are you a boycotter?
Boycotting it. It's over. No, I'm so excited. Obviously, I grew up loving this franchise since probably at too young of an age. Like my Scream story is pretty much the same as everybody else's. Saw it at a young age, loved it, and especially following these characters, the OG characters. So I know people hate hearing that, but like that's who they are. They started the franchise, and I've loved those characters since I was a little kid, and now I'm not a little kid and still love them. And to have them a part of your childhood, teen years, young adult. It means something to a lot of people. It means a lot to me. And I'm just so excited. It feels like it's back on track. And I hate saying that because I know a lot of people really love 5 and 6. And I always preface it before I say something negative about 5 and 6. I always say, I'm glad that there's an audience for it and that people love it. And it's for you. That's great. That's for you. Now there's other sides and that's for them. And that you should be glad for those people too. So I just, I'm really excited that so many old faces are back. Not old, but legendary
Wow,
is the better
ageist.
word.
You're a
Legendary
boycotter
faces.
and you're an ageist. I see. So
Right.
you track to all of these, the 3 minutes so far of this recording, it points me in the direction that you are a member of the Melissa Barrera fandom. So,
I am. Yeah. Right heart.
I'm just teasing. Well, it's interesting. You said a lot of interesting things here. And let's start out with one. I appreciate the fact that when you do share your opinion, you do preface it by saying, hey, I understand that this may be, this is great for you, but here's my opinion. I respect it. And a part of me feels like, why should we have to say that? Why can't we just say why can't we just say our opinion without having to fear that we're going to hurt everybody else's feelings? Like, growing up as a Scream 3 person, like even before Scream 4, like, do you think anybody gave a fuck what my feelings were about their opinion about Scream 3? Absolutely fucking not. Like, it's just this mentality that's so weak. It's and pathetic. It's like, how sad are you that like that your entire day gets ruined because I didn't curate my opinion for your feelings? F that.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, not to get too deep, but it's probably like having gone to therapy and realizing before you pay someone else a compliment or try to state your opinion, a fear of not wanting to disrespect somebody else. So you, in a way, dim your own light so they feel more comfortable with you. But you're right. We shouldn't be like, that's great for you, but here's my opinion and don't kill me for it. Unfortunately, that's the world. I mean, I don't know why. And it's such it's such a happy part of the medium, like a lot of it, which is weird because it's a slasher franchise, but it brings so many people joy that it's been enveloped in such darkness for this last however long, it's but 2 years. And there is a section of the franchise who has pushed it in that regard. Because like you said, you're a Scream 3 guy. It's what actually really brought me to love the podcast. I was like, nobody likes Scream 3. I mean, when I saw it, I loved it as a little kid and continue to, but everybody was dumping on it for so long. And I like seeing the respect it's kind of rightfully deserved. And you've been a big proponent of that. People have been like, yeah, Ryan's changed my mind. It's like, exactly. There's another perspective to stuff that we don't necessarily always look at. And especially with this new generation of Scream, I'm just going to say it, that, their way is the way. And if you go against it, we're going to burn you at the stake.
Well, as my good friend Taylor Swift once sang, they're burning all the witches, and even if you aren't one.
You aren't one.
So light me up. That's what I say.
Exactly.
Well, and they have. So I mean, like, there's no more lighting to do. But so you're someone who's very plugged into the fandom and the dynamics and like the nuances. And I mean, I am too, because I mean, like, I run this podcast and I have a social media presence. So I mean, I'm very hyper aware of the sensitivities and how different groups think and how the dynamics actually shift, throughout and like the corners and stuff. And I feel like you're somebody who also feels that. So I'm just gonna jump off. You're a Scream 4 person, not to spoil your ranking, and we'll get there, I promise. So you're a Scream 4 person. How would you say the fandom has changed since Scream 4 came out? Do you remember a specific before and after? Because you said that you grew up with Scream and you've had it at different points in your life, and I guess I have too. I had it at elementary school, and then in high school, and then now in college, and and beyond. So it's something and what other franchise can really say that, where we've had the same actors and the same kind of creative people, right? Across so many years. It's so cool. But how would you say, you think that the fandom has changed from Scream 4 and through the Radio Silence era to now, the Kevin Williamson era?
Well, with Scream 4, it's such an odd thing because you had Scream 1, 2, and 3, and they were relatively very successful. And then the franchise kind of went away as it concluded and people loved it. And then before Scream 4 came out, there was all this, it was Perez Hilton. That was kind of like our Twitter at the time. And other things were just starting and all the news about it and all the hype around it. And Nev hadn't joined right away. And so people of the franchise were like nervous, is this going to be the first Scream without Nev? And then it all started to fall into place.
Yeah.
You had Nev, Courtney, David, Wes, Kevin writing, which was huge, and everybody was excited about that. And then the behind the scenes pictures and video, and just the excitement was there. Unfortunately, horror was not there at the time. And I was working at my local movie theater from my hometown at the time. And it was all the devil movies. It was all the exorcism movies, and found footage was really big. Those were the movies that did well. And slashers they weren't really at that level. I mean, I think excitement was there for OG fans, but it didn't promoting timeline of when it was released. And just the horror was not up to where Scream 4 was. Again, everybody says it was ahead of its time, and it really was. And I think after it didn't do what fans had hoped it would do, or it went away. And then Netflix really rebounded Scream when it came out on Netflix a few years later, the OG franchise, like 1 and 2 and 3 came out, and people started to fall in love with it again. Newer fans, older fans had found that base of it again and started doing blogs and stories, and you started to hear about it again. It's like, wow, Scream's really come back around, kind of like another Taylor Swift reference. It's coming back around. Again, after, 5 too, I was like, there's not a lot of outlets like for podcasts for 5 before 5 came out. And then I found this one and I was like, wow, there is another, there is more fans out there that deeply resonate with Scream. And listening to you, and I was like, okay, well, let's hear what this guy has to say. And he's like, wait, he's a Scream 3 fan? That's insane. Like, nobody liked Scream 3 for a long time. So I think it was just finding a fandom at different levels. It was so huge before 5. I don't think you can compare 4 and 5's fandom level, because it was there before 4, but not anywhere as reaching as 5 was. You didn't have the social media platforms that we do now. And so it really has grown. But as with anything that grows big, you have good and bad. And I think we've seen obviously the both sides of it since.
So I have some follow-up questions, but I just feel like it is a completely different world from then to now. And just in terms of like how we started out this conversation, and even just talking about like the idea that we have to curate our opinions to not about the movies to not hurt the feelings of people of the new generation of fans. One, but then also how are those same sensitive people, those ultra sensitive, weak people, then like on the flip side, so caustic and aggressive and frankly violent in with their activism. Like, it's just kind of crazy. And like, one thing that I think is really weird, but I think it's something good. I think with Scream 7, because we're still a year away from it, really, I think that the number of people who are going to come into Scream then as kind of new, fresh fans is going to be significant. And I think that it's almost just going to be like a clean swap of like, the toxic fans that, or I don't want to say toxic. I don't think that they were always toxic. Maybe they always were, but there's the cohort of fans that kind of came in with the Radio Silence era and then have just, been trying to, burn the world down, whether that's, threatening Christopher Landon so far that with his children that he has to get the FBI involved, whether it's trying to destroy me and my podcast for a year and a half. Like, I think that the grown behavior of the toxicity, I think that like those people are, they've, opted out of the fandom. But with that, I think it's fine. I'm kind of glad that those people are gone. I want them to stay gone. But like, I think that there is a vacuum and it will be filled by people who are discovering Scream 7 for the first time. Like, I think that there's actually a real opportunity again to, I don't want to say relaunch Scream, because Scream was relaunched in 4 and then it was relaunched in 5. And then it's just like, do we really need to have another kind of relaunch? Like, ooh, Scream is back with Scream 7. But I think that you do. I think so much time has passed because Melissa and Jenna aren't involved anymore, and it's really going back to Sydney. I do think that there is a moment, an opportunity, and a need to reintroduce the franchise at its core. So I think having the idea of Nev and Kevin and Courtney together, I think does that, because they're also celebrating 30 years. So I think that there is a good PR kind of lane for them to redefine whatever happens next, whether it's just Scream 7 as a standalone movie, or if it's Scream 7 and 8 or 9. You know what I mean? What are your thoughts?
Exactly. Like, you couldn't have said it better. It's just like we want to keep calling it a relaunch, or it's going backwards. But at the same point, it's these characters are people who've been around. Nev knows Sydney, Courtney knows Gail, and Kevin knows these characters. These aren't fresh actors jumping into something new to create. They've grown with these people. If you really take it at a human level, think of how much you've grown from when you were a young person to a young adult to now. They feel the same way. So we always say it's a relaunch, but it's really catching up with how these people are in this stage of their life, and how I feel with people who say, well, Sydney's story is over. Let her have her. It just grosses me out when it's like, let her have her happy ending. I don't think these people understand the beauty of this character. It's about someone who overcomes. And that's what's so great about and we did have a trio of characters at one point, and now we just have the two strong female, which is perfect. But they are people who they're a role model for many of us who were younger and felt overseen or felt, not great about themselves. And these were role models who showed us how, you go through something bad just to come out the other side, which how wonderful what a paradox of this situation. Nev has been lambasted and horrible names called, but she's going to live her life and come out the other. I truly believe they'll be like, this is a woman who's been a part of this franchise forever, and nobody's going to keep her out of it, and no one's going to make her dim her light. She knows her worth. She knows what she wants. And I think it's a beautiful story as an actress, as a person who knows this character too. I cannot wait to see Sydney at this stage in her life. And I don't know. I think it's great.
I want to just take that comment, because this is something that, like, whenever I hear the Sydney story's over, ! Like, let her have her happy ending. It's so cringe. It sends just like a trigger down my back and my spine. Like, I don't think that. I think that, like, there are two camps of people who say this. One camp, I think that maybe they do mean it, but I also don't get them. Like, these people who say, "Oh, let her live her happy ending. She's just been through so much. She is a fictional character. She is like her story is like so intertwined with what Scream is." And like, I just think it's so silly to say again. Like, do we say that Buffy should have ended after season 3 because she went through so much in high school? She needs to live it. She needs to have a college experience that's happy. Let's have roses and sunflowers when she goes to college because she deserves to be so happy. Like, come on, this is a horror genre. I just think it's silly. So you have that camp, but then you also have like these other people who I think say this, but they don't mean it genuinely. They are just using this as like a way to like
push her out.
Push her out and like put her to the side and like without giving her like her due respect or an honor, and they do this to kind of boost their own these new characters that they love. And I don't want to, it's hard because like I'm not shaming somebody for loving the new characters. I think that's fine, but it's just the tactics and there's a bit of arrogance and just cruelty, and again a lack of respect for how a lot of people understood Scream to be, which is a story about Sidney Prescott. And I think that like that part of the discussion just isn't given if you want to just, I would rather them say we like Sam and Tara more and we don't want to see Sidney, she's too old. That is what these people mean. So why not just say that as opposed to she deserves her happy ending?
It's no offense, but it's like, okay, well, here comes an offense. That's what they're basically doing. And like you said, just be I like this character more than this, which is great. And you should. Same time, don't be angry at somebody else for feeling a different way.
And like, there is a legitimate perspective to have, which is, I know a lot of people had the expectation that there would be 3 movies with Sam as the lead and like to create a trilogy, but that was just that. It was an expectation. If there was truly a plan for that, why was Melissa and why were they only contracted for 2 movies, right out the gate?
Exactly.
And like the way that Scream 6 ends, there is a climactic moment for Sam wearing the robe, and getting to survive, and like they all get to survive despite being
Mm.
stabbed 150 times. So like there is a happy ending there, and she does drop the mask. There is some resolution there. So I think that there is a point at which, it's not as though I don't it's not like Scream 6 ended on a cliffhanger for them and their stories are
No.
left completely unresolved. So it's like, if you're going to say this about Sydney, Sam and Tara can be equated to being in the same place as her. Like, I just don't understand the angst, if that makes sense. And like,
I would say with Scream 6, if one character's storyline is left resolved, it's Gail, the person who's been a part of this story forever. It's like, that's where it's frustrating for other fans. It's
Yeah.
like the respect is gone for what came before, and you can't market things. This is for Wes, this is for who came before, and then end a storyline of a character with, she's in the hospital. It's like, great. It was the same thing with Dewey dying in 5, which I know that it causes a lot of controversy for people. Should he have not? And I mean, think whatever you want of that. My issue with that scene is heartbreaking. And they did a good job of the filming, and the acting is great by David and especially by Courtney. But then we cut to Sydney coming in, and you expect this sweet moment between her and Gail, and let's cut back to the new characters that we've known for 25 minutes.
Yeah.
It's like, wait a minute, we did not see any sort of connect. I mean, there was a connection, obviously, but we didn't get to see the fallout of how these characters would feel about losing another character who they've been invested with. So there was a lot of bait and switch. There was a lot of it's like putting a sticker of Gouda cheese on Velveeta and saying it's designer cheese. No, we fans could see through it, and we're a little upset by it.
Well, and so let's, it's so funny to me that you just made a really excellent point. We're gonna make a post, a collaboration about this, and just share it to the high heavens. But no, like, you're right. In some ways, for all the people who have been yelling and screaming about like the fact that the torch was passed and therefore it should only be that the only way to continue Scream is with Sam and Tara, like, and not with Sydney and her family, like, which is the natural place that you would think the franchise could go instead of, after Scream 1, 2, 3, and 4. As opposed to creating this like, hard left turn to a retcon love child of Billy Loomis. But like, everybody is resolved in Scream 6 and everybody kind of gets some resolution, happy ending. And the one person who doesn't is Gail Weathers. And it's almost like, but then, by any logical standard, Gail Weathers is the one who should have the next chapter, right? Because she didn't get that resolution. So like, in a way, like, the way that Scream 6 leaves everybody, it almost begs for Sydney and Gail to come back as the bank.
Yeah, it just really it opened a door that like I feel like Scream 6 did not know what it wanted to be.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, I felt like 5 didn't really know what it wanted to be. Is it a homecoming movie like 4? Is it a refresh? And when you're trying to be 5 different things, you end up being nothing.
Yeah.
And sometimes I feel like 6 is about nothing.
Well,
in my view.
I think 5 knew what it wanted to be in terms of, I think it wanted to be Star Wars The Force Awakens. That's what it wanted to be. I mean, whereas Scream 6, I don't think it knew what it wanted to be. They were just kind of, it's just like Scream 6 in a lot of ways is just this big like corporate shape, this blob where nothing really happens of consequence. There is some creativity, but it's just not executed well. And there is no like overarching like identity of the movie. And whenever it does try to identify itself, it's cringe. So, I mean, like, all under the mask that this is something different, something new because they're in a new setting, which isn't like,
The worst tagline. It's something different. And then it's something we've seen again.
Well, so, you brought it up. You brought up Dewey. And like, here's the thing. So an idea, something that really bothers me is this idea. I know it sounds so ridiculous. It sounds so dramatic. It bothers me, but it's just it's the slight petty annoyances of dealing with like the discourse is like this idea that the core 4 must be preserved in terms of like Chad and Mindy must have plot armor around themselves in Scream 7. Like they must survive so that they can make it to Scream 8 so that Chad and Tara can live happily ever after, and that the core 4 can have their core 4 beach volleyball scene. I don't know, but this idea really, it does kind of like grind my gears a bit because I think that's so stupid. Like if one, there's no guarantee that that Jenna and Melissa will ever come back. In fact, I'm not like so certain that they will. I mean, I think based on what we've learned this week, like I get the sense that Jenna doesn't really have much interest in Scream or coming back to Scream. And as long as Spyglass owns the rights, I mean, there's been a lot of really hard feelings with Melissa, and I don't know if either would want to rekindle that, especially if Nev is a driving force of 7. There's no guarantee that Jenna and Melissa would come back. So one, are we really going to put Chad and Mindy on ice and have them in Scream 7 just as bodies in the story where there's no threat, there's no risk with them, there's no real function of them other than just to be there, just to wave, and not like interact with the, with the potential risk of dying, like in a slasher. Like, that's silly. It just, I don't know. If you're gonna have Chad and Mindy in your movie, like, have them in the movie or don't have them in the movie, but don't have them there to say, oh well, they must survive because we need a core 4 reunion. Did we get a trio reunion? We did not get a trio reunion, and the trio worked, became the trio and became this kind of like core thing.
Unit.
Yes, over 25 years. And, that was, and yet we didn't get a final moment with them or a final movie with them or a last hurrah. The core 4 existed as the core 4 for half of a movie, if you really think about it. They didn't really have scenes in Scream 5. And then in Scream 6, they don't really become the core 4 until like the middle of the movie. And then Chad and Mindy aren't even really in the finale. So it's just like the back half kind of Scream 6. It just doesn't feel like the core 4, it just feels very forced and just very weird. Like, we have to reserve space just, for Chad and Mindy in the future, and they can't really be active players in the movie. And that's kind of the mentality of Scream 6 and the problem of Scream 6 with why they didn't kill anybody off. I don't know. Lucas, what do you think?
I mean, I agree. I feel like with 7, to everyone who says Scream has always been consistent timeline, there's been no Halloween 4, 5, or Jump or 3, or it's always had this consistency. That's why it's so good. And with 7, I think they realize, well, what's our connective tissue between 5 and 6? And it's can't have Jenna or Melissa, so we're gonna have Chad and Mindy, and not even in a bad way. It's just I'm really confident Kevin's gonna give them something of substance. They may not have 10 minutes of screen time or 5 minutes, or who knows what their screen time is going to be. But I truly believe Kevin can give characters moments that have some impact. And what I would like to see in a positive way is I'd like to see those characters actually have something to do other than meaningless dialogue or monologues. I mean, Mindy, I want to like her. I want to like these characters is my issue, but they never gave us anything that made me a lot of people really connect in a way that you would want to. So I'm really hoping for 7 that there is a moment with Chad or Mindy, that there is this connectiveness that you do feel like that. That's what I was hoping for in 6 with Gail and Kirby.
Yeah.
Like, I want to see a moment of them connect, but it was just snarky dialogue. And it just felt like this feels so bizarre. And what a missed opportunity. You gave that moment for Jenna or Tara and Kirby, but you didn't give that moment for Kirby or Gale. And it's like, those are characters who went through something not together, but simultaneously. You think there would be a moment of like, how did you feel about, and how do you feel about it happening again? But we're going to sidestep that for characters that we have not spent time with.
Well, I just want to say, like, on that note, like, I think that Mason did a really good job in Scream 6, and I think that he did. I would argue that there was a connectiveness there on his part, even though, even within like the limits of being like the love interest for Tara. I just think, this idea that Chad and Mindy can only exist to be part of Sam and Tara's story, I think is silly. I mean, they're literally not this time. They're a part of Sydney's story this time, and we don't know what the context is. We don't know why they come to wherever Sydney lives, which is Pine Grove. But I just think that it's kind of ridiculous to say that they can only function as X, Y, and Z.
Core 4
in the future, on the off chance that the pieces align. So I think that like that's for me, I just want them to be able to be defined as their own characters that aren't tied to Sam and Tara through this idea of the core 4. I think that's, I want them to feel like a Randy or a Dewey or a Kirby where, we look back on them and we think, oh, wow, they were a significant, or a Cotton Weary, a significant part of the franchise that wasn't tied to this buddy movie friendship circle. You know what I mean?
Agreed.
And I think that like this is a really good opportunity to develop them as truly great Scream characters on
Mhm.
their own accord. I just, so that's just like a thing for me. But so getting back to like you, so what is your Scream ranking?
Oh gosh, this is always so hard. Okay, I'm a four guy. I love four. I
Mhm.
always have. And I think the reason why I love four so much is I can kind of dip into it without feeling one way or the other. With one, I always just want to go into two and then automatically want to go into three. So when I watch those, there's such a connectiveness between one, two, and three that I kind of want to watch them together. Whereas with four, it is a home. I love when you call it a homecoming movie because that's what it feels like. It's one that I could just feel like I can turn that on, and I obviously, again, I'm going to preface it being which we shouldn't. I don't want to go into five after watching four. It just ruins the experience for me. So with four, it's one that I just, oh gosh, I could just turn it on and I just feel so connected to those characters coming back. And they don't, like you said earlier, sorry, I'm going off on a tangent. They don't need to be around each other saying, we're the trio, we're the trio. Like they don't go, hi, Jill, we're the trio. Hello, Officer Perkins, we're the trio. These are characters who can go off on their own side stories and then they collide in the end because they work well together. It's a lot of show and not tell.
Mhm.
Whereas earlier we were saying with the core four, it's a lot of tell, not show. It's we are the core four. It's like, okay, we get it. We get that's who you are. So four, again, it's a beautiful homecoming movie of these characters. And I don't remember which movie there was an audio commentary where Wes said, what I love about this franchise and these characters, it's a drama stuck in a horror movie.
Yeah.
I don't remember which, but I remember hearing that. And it's like, that's how I feel. I love these characters so much. And they're not just in a movie where they're getting torn up. I mean, some of it, yes. And there is, its own excitement about that. But these three characters are people who choose to be in each other's lives. And it's something I've always loved. So four always just brings that home for me.
Well, so drama stuck in a horror movie, I love that. And because like, I was thinking about it today because like, one thing I find that's a pet peeve of mine is when people act as though Scream 3 is this, like Jerry Springer, Lisa Kudrow, Rob Schneider, type of comedy movie. And
Yeah.
I just don't see it that way. I don't understand the obsession that people have with focusing on the comedic elements. I still think Scream 3 is based as a drama, like in a lot of respects. Like when it comes to Sydney and Gail and Dewey, like it's and everything at the heart of the main storyline and the backstory. It's all drama based. Like I don't see it as a comedy. Like some people try to push, and like I get that Parker Posey is a comedic character in the stab cast. The comedy maybe maybe it goes from like a 4 to a 5 on a scale of 10, but like I don't get the obsession with like branding Scream 3 as a comedy when it's really a drama mystery thriller. I don't know. It's just I find it annoying when people do that instead of seeing the drama and focusing on the drama, which is there. And maybe it's just invisible to people because it's so baked into the formula. But it really is a drama. Like it's more of a drama than it is a comedy.
Three has like the darkest tones of the franchise at all. I mean, we're dealing with lots of big issues that I don't think people can comprehend in a movie. Like, I think it's like some people go in, they want just fun. They want to, and everybody has their own reasons for watching film. And I just think people like to say the Scooby Doo Scream 3. And it's like, I don't think, have you sat down and watched this movie? There's nothing Scooby Doo about the character of Sydney's mom. I mean, the things she went through. It's just, that's something I'll never understand either. Yeah, there's comedy. You have to have that offset some of the darkness that's in that movie, but that's in every Scream movie. That's what makes them fun and enjoyable to watch.
So your ranking, just to be clear, 4, 1,
And then
go
I
ahead.
would go 4, 1, and 3. 1 and 3 are so tied for me because 1 sets the stage, and I feel like 3 just bats it home.
Right.
It really, you look at these characters where they start, and I don't want to say where they end, but where that arc of those characters at that point in their life ends. Sydney really goes through it in 1, 2, especially 3. But her walking through the gate at the end, it just shows that this isn't the same girl we've seen going forward.
Right.
She's moving and she's gonna, I mean, I always felt at the end of 3, this is gonna happen to her again.
Yeah.
It's not over, but she's going to deal with it differently. She knows how to be, she knows what she's doing, and she's found strength in 2 people she can trust, and that's Dewey and Gale, and vice versa for them. are characters that are fully realized. Dewey's always going to be a hero, but he goes through it himself in different ways with his relationship with Gale.
So I love that, and I appreciate that, and I think that results in which is your favorite film, Scream 4. The Sydney in Scream 4 is who you just described as the person who at the end of 3 has it figured out or has a sense of like, I can do this, you know? So I like that. Okay, so you're 4, 1 and 3, 2, and then how did the last 2 go?
5, somewhere down the line. I'm sorry. And then 6 is last. I went and supported both. I wanted, and I saw both multiple times, 5 and 6. I did not have good feelings leaving those films, but I'm glad other people did, and they exist, and that's where they're at.
So, okay, I have 2 questions with the same prompt. So the prompt is, does it bother you? Okay. 1, does it bother you when people, even like, let's just say whenever I talk about like the good old days and I talk about the unit of just the trilogy versus the quadrilogy versus including 4 with 1, 2, and 3?
No, it doesn't bother me. I love that you've really shown more love towards 4, because when we first started listening to the podcast,
I was lower on 4.
You were a little hard on 4.
I was.
And I was like, I mean, I respect your opinion, because it's like, he's a 3 guy. You never hear that. But I was like, the love for 3, and he doesn't really care for, but I understand. It was a different time and it was a different feeling. And then when 5 came out, I was like, oh, you were you were excited and you really liked it. And I was like, that's interesting. And I was like, oh, I'm kind of surprised. But then I remember you had the directors on for 5. And I was like, okay, is he going to be one of those people that's like, it was the greatest movie I've ever seen in the history of the world? But you really stated your opinion. And I think it almost caught them off guard a couple times, especially when you mentioned the screen time of the original characters. They were like, no, they were in it longer. And you're like, no, I have it.
Here
down.
you go.
And they looked like, well, I felt like they were in it more, and it's like they weren't.
Well, so, and I just want to clarify, like, because like I have always loved 4. It's just the fact that like because I was a trilogy guy, and like I one of my regrets, and it shouldn't be a regret, because my opinions about Scream are living, breathing documents. Like, they're constantly changing as things change and as I watch things and, get more context. Scream 4, before I was just so obsessed with the continuity of 1, 2, and 3 that with 4, the differences in like the style of 4 versus 3, that was big for me. And what really, despite me loving, I've always, from day one, I've been consistent that I think Gale Weathers is amazing in Scream 4. I think it's one of her best. I think Jill is one of the best killers, if not the best. I think that the commentary is so brilliant. Like, I've been there since day one. So it's just I was stupidly obsessed with the first 3. But what really changed, and I did like 5 because I thought the tone was good, and I was being open-minded to the new story, even though I didn't want it. Like, it's one of those things, like, there was a point at which I decided not to fight the idea of Sydney not being the main character. Like, I remember the exact moment. It was actually the day of the Scream 5 trailer. They also released like the poster kind of, and they released like the credits at the bottom of the poster where it tells you like the names, and like it says, with Courtney Cox, David Arquette, and Nev Campbell. And that was the moment I realized, okay, so this is happening, and there's nothing, the movie's filmed, there's nothing we can do at this point. So I'm just going to try to enjoy it as much as possible. So that was the mindset going into Scream 5. And but if you remember, when I spoke to Radio Silence, I actually said, I didn't get on there and say, oh, this is one of the best sequels. I said,
No.
my ranking is 3, 1 and 2, 5 and 4. And I said that's not my ranking today, of course, but like 4 is above 5, and like, so, and one last thing here is like, what my big turning point with 4, when I realized I was being stupid about holding Scream 4 to such high standards, was after Scream 6. I was like, oh dear God, how can I complain about the music in Scream 4 or the fact that the deleted scenes were cut out of Scream 4? I can read the deleted scenes into Scream 4, and I think it's, I think that's so cool. Why am I so obsessed with these minute, small, like little dots compared to huge mountains, molehills of Scream 4 versus mountains of problems with Scream 6? Like, that was kind of my journey with being like, of changing my tune about Scream 4. And I wish I had been a bit nicer when, like, in the first, like, 9 months of the podcast. I do. I'm sorry.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
With the criticisms that Scream, let's just say 3 and 4, because they probably got it more than, obviously, they got way more criticism. Do you feel like the things that were praised in 5 and 6 were what was negative
Yeah.
about 3 and 4.
Basically.
Like, I remember there was so many scenes or so many reviews of like in 3 or 4, someone would say, Sydney got stabbed in the stomach. There's no way she'd be able to move like that. And then in 6, someone gets stabbed 4 million times in the chest and they're up telling jokes. And it's like, why are we so lenient towards this where we were so harsh towards that? And
Yeah.
I'm not saying you should, it's a movie, like it is a movie, but you just wonder, where is the toxic positivity going this way? Where before, under Wes, who these filmmakers were dedicating it to, it went so opposite direction. I was just always so confused by the love of the things that were criticized in earlier films for 5 and 6.
Absolutely. Like, and like the idea of like people complaining about Sydney's screen time in Scream 3, what a joke compared to her screen time in Scream 5 and
Oh.
frankly, her Sydney's screen time in Scream 6. So, and I get like, it is wild to look back and think about. And I think this was at the root of my problem back then when I started the podcast, and why I was a bit harsher on Scream 4 was, the mood and like the types of things we looked at and like the standards we had for things before 5 and 6 were so vastly different. And then 5 and 6 come along, and it's just, the gulf between how we used to criticize, or not look through the lens as a film critic at Scream, just completely wildly changed. And now
Absolutely.
I just don't understand, how people sit here and praise 5 and 6 while also dissing on 3 and 4. It's like, you're holding 3 and 4 to a standard that's different than we're holding, 5 and 6 to. So, there's a lot of hypocrisy in the way that 3 and 4 are talked about versus 5 and 6.
And in what world is a review for a Scream movie go? The killer sucked. The third act sucks.
Yeah.
The reveals suck. The motives suck. But it was a great film. It was It's like, what are you talking about? These are what these films live and die by.
Yeah. And like, one other thing I want to just add about just on the previous thing we were discussing, I was very high on Scream 5 because there was something being forced in the air, like, and it's like this artificially, like what you've described as toxic positivity. Like it was a real thing. Like, if you didn't love Scream 5, you were a toxic fan. If you had criticisms about this or that, you were called a racist, or you were called this, and you weren't a true fan. You weren't doing what Wes Craven would want you to do. Like these are so stupid things to say and stupid things to put on people as though like it's a responsibility. Like, just have an opinion and talk about it. Like, don't, have a conversation, not just demand compliance. So, I mean, 5, I think it's fair to say that 5 has, as I still like 5 a lot, but I think it's fair to say that 5 has that consensus that it had whenever it first came out has definitely taken a toll. And I don't think it's the consensus movie. And I think, a lot of people rank Scream 5 in last place, which I think is an wildly interesting thing after so many people put it as the best sequel. And can you imagine can you just think about like how many people said 5 was the best sequel when it first came out, and how stupid it seems in retrospect, like, and recency bias, toxic positivity, whatever, but it's just so stupid.
And most people that put 5 last now, they put 6 as like their number 2. And it's like, wait, where are we? Like, are you? I mean,
Who
what
are you?
happened? Yeah, what happened in the 1 year that? And I mean, I'm very hard on 5, but I feel like there is something in 5. There is a movie there. It's just they didn't want to do it. I feel like a lot of 5, and especially in the interviews and the press leading up to it, they were talking about, feels like Scream 1 behind the scenes. We have our final girl. We're all close on set. It's a lot like Scream 1 behind the scenes. And I always wanted to say, well, that's great. I'm sure that you guys were close, and they were close during Scream 1 behind the scenes. They also had to make a great movie with Scream.
Well,
whereas 5, they weren't as obsessed with making a good movie.
And can I just say, like, does anybody, after we've been through this, like, I don't know, the way I see this, and maybe I'm just cynical, and maybe I've just been jaded by the Melissa Barrera fandom. I just feel like all of that was bullshit. It's like, I just feel like, like it's all when people do this stuff and say this stuff, and I'll be very interested to know and see how Kevin and Nev and Courtney approach talking about Scream 7 as they promote it. just to see like, how do they talk about it in a different way than they talked about it with Scream 5? Because like, with Scream 5, yeah, didn't like in retrospect, all of that just seems so sugary and over the top and like, and not in the good way. It seems like, I don't know. I just feel like it's fake. This idea of like, oh, we were so close. It's just like the 1996. No, it's not. Like, give me a break. Like, I'm sure that like everybody made friends on each of the movies, and these
Yeah,
are
of course.
this isn't summer. This isn't like again a summer vacation, like fun in the sun. Like this is a job and a movie. Like it's like it's great if you have that chemistry, but I don't. But saying like, oh, it hasn't been like this since the original, that doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. What matters is the movie that's made.
Exactly.
So
I mean, how many times do you leave a movie that's not good and go, but I bet they were close on set, so I like it. No, you leave, say that movie wasn't great, but okay. That's how they were marketing it. It was all about behind the scenes, and it just didn't. I
The
kind of
selfies.
knew there was trouble in that regard before. I was like, this just sounds odd. Like it sounds like there's a van parked out front labeled candy, come get it. And it's like most people know, okay, well what's in that van, really?
Like, and also the selfies, like, yeah. So okay, and the other thing is, does it bother you when people try to dig at? I mean, it will obviously bother you, but like, I guess, what are your thoughts on when people try to use Scream 4 and the fact that horror just didn't meet the moment when it was released to dig at it? And like, specifically, I feel like Scream 4 has it worse than Scream 3 in some ways by today's standards because of the money aspect and like the way that Scream 4 is attacked and the way that, the Toxic Melissa people attack Nev is not only by calling her old and making fun of her wrinkles and her age, but and stuff, but then there's also this component of, well, the last time she was in charge with Scream 4, it was a huge disaster, and it was her fault that Scream 4 was a disaster. And only Jenna and Melissa could save the franchise, and they're the only reason. Oh my god!
By those standards, the Jenna and Melissa's movies that flop, I guess they're in charge, and they're the reason that those movies flopped, right? I mean, you can't say one thing for one person and not for the other. It's just, yeah, to those people, suck it, grow up and just move on. Okay, these actresses that are getting, I hate the term a woman of a certain age, like, because we don't ever say that about men, never. And you wouldn't.
Yeah.
There's a respect that you just would have. Nev looks amazing. Everybody says that. And she, call her an old woman. A lot of people would like to look that age when they're, around Nev's age. I don't know. It's just those people are nuts.
Well, so, you're right, though. Has anyone said, oh, well, David Arquette, I mean, he's a man of a certain age.
No. Yeah, exactly. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Well, so, as a Scream 3 person talking to a Scream 4 person, as we start to wind up here, I just like to say, like, the fact that Scream 3 and 4 were judged so harshly back in their day, I think it actually is I think it's a good thing in retrospect. It's an asset almost because they're the underdogs that can be discovered and have been discovered over and over again by different people over the 20 years and over the 10 years that since their releases. And the greatness is there, and it's just a matter of people seeing it and interpreting it, and finally like actually seeing the expressive truth of those movies, not just whatever the PR was around them. So yeah. But
which was never very positive. So I mean, really, when you find that, there's a depth to them that I think has shown in their age. That's why they get more popular. And it's like you said, 5 and 6, they've lost a little bit of their sheen. And I think people are like, yeah, I really loved this movie when it came out, 5 and 6. And they're like, now it's like, yeah, it's kind of it's feeling surface level, I think is what the best way they can describe it. But
right. All right, well, Lucas, let's go through the speed round. You good with that?
Yes, definitely.
Sydney, Gail, or Ty?
Oh God, Sydney.
Okay.
I love you, Gail, but Sydney. Can I just
right.
say there's a description. I don't know if it was a BuzzFeed article or some article said they were ranking the characters, and I think Dewey was 3 or 4, and then Sydney was 2, and they're like, she's a hero. Then the next one, it was Gail is also a hero, but a hero with money to make. I love that. That is Gail. I love her. She's a hero with money to make, but I'm a Sydney person.
All right. Sam or Tara?
Neither. I do not connect with either of them. It has nothing. Yeah, neither of them. They go together. I think that's how they were brought in. So both, neither, whichever way you want to take it. Neither.
All right. Dewey or Chad?
Dewey.
Yeah.
Dewey. But I will say, I think like what you said about Mason, he has a really good performance in Six. He's gonna be like a Glenn Powell. He kind of just has a charisma
Yep.
that he could probably act with wallpaper and he would be like, yeah, there's something to him. So I do like him, but I would say Dewey.
Favorite killer?
I'm a Jill. I love Jill's motive and her performance. I don't know. People, a lot of people who watch Scream say it's not very scary. They're like, it's not scary though. It's like, do you intellectualize? There are two people. There's this person who they're representing. Then there's the real self that's scary. And I love that about Jill and Roman too. There is a I don't know, what he presents, you really fall in love with him as just like a side character, almost like a Dewey or a Randy. But then when you get to the meat of who he is in the third act and at the end, it's terrifying how he looks at Sydney with such hatred when in reality, Sydney's such a good person. If Relman would have come to her first, almost over Maureen, there would have been a connectiveness, I think, that they would have loved each other maybe down the road. But I don't know. Yeah, I love Roman. Jill, Roman, and Stu. I do love Stu. But yeah, Jill's my favorite.
Favorite opening and favorite finale?
I'm gonna go Scream 4. I know that's a hot take, but I love the title card and the feeling it gives. Obviously, you can't beat Drew Barrymore. That scene is epic, but the way Scream 4's opening makes me feel, it's like, oh God, something's coming and it's great. In finale, I'm so torn between 3 and 4. I love both of those. It just hits hard when it's someone that close to Sydney. So,
You're a 4 person. You can, I think 4 is appropriate for you.
4 is probably there.
I'm assigning it to you.
Yeah. There's something about 3. There's always like a moment in 3 I wish we would have seen. And it's with Sydney when she runs into Angelina in the bathroom. In some ways, I almost wish that was Roman she ran into, not the bathroom, because that'd be a little creepy. But that would like hearing him say, I wanted to make a movie that would make you proud and then have that final arc. That would have, I mean, what it was amazing. But I almost feel like that would have made that even harder, like for Sydney to grasp, having seen him maybe just once earlier on.
I do think that like I if there was something I can change about Scream 3, it would be to give just Sydney like even if like let's just say like she and Dewey were standing around before she goes into the bathroom, like after Gail leaves and Tyson and Roman just happen upon them and bump into Sydney and there's just like a moment where Sydney gets to briefly meet them. I think that would have added to the story just a little bit. So see, I mean, Scream 3 is my baby, and I'm a grown up, and I can detect where it has its faults. So, okay, what is your favorite thing about Scream?
It's obviously the characters, especially the trio. But I mean, I love a lot of the characters throughout the franchise. But there's just, I mean, they have such a connectiveness that they don't have to tell you. You just feel it, and there's growth with them. And yeah, it's this, what a great story. And I mean, Sydney was so representative of so many people who grew up feeling not seen in her. Like as a young gay person, I used to watch movies and TV shows. You didn't connect with the men or the boys because they were hyper masculine. And then if there was a gay character, they were usually the butt of the joke, or they died or something horrible with them. So with a character like Sydney or Buffy, or they always represented someone who could go through dark times and come out the other side. And that's what I've loved so much about this franchise, and especially about that character. It's someone that really goes through the depths and comes out stronger, or just even with a new perspective. And that's just what I always loved about Sydney.
So as somebody who has listened to the podcast for a long time, do you have like a favorite thing about the podcast or a favorite memory from the podcast that you can remember that sticks out? I'm just curious.
I really love when you did the 3 and 4s, like, as seasons, TV seasons, because that's how well, first of all, I've never met someone who loved to rank things as much as I do. I just do it in my head, but like, I was like, I'm always ranking things. So I love when you rank seasons or characters, that's always stuck out in my head. When you and Joey Valisi did the Scream 7 script and I listened to it and I was like, yeah, I really liked it, but I was like, I can't see it. And when you did the Scream script, I was like, I can see this. This is a movie in my head. And I mean, it was perfect. I love it. I listened to it. I've listened to it multiple times when I'm like, I need to listen to something while walking the dogs. That's something I'll listen to. And I'm like, I can see this as an actual movie in my head. So that sticks out. definitely.
Thank you. I love that so much, and I hope that you enjoy the final Scream when it comes out in
Cannot
September.
wait.
Also, just as a closing note, who is your favorite supporting role across the franchise? I want to see if you're gonna pick a 3-person, a 4-person, a 1-person. I know it's from Scream 5.
How'd you guess? Yeah, Liv. No, it's Gail's boyfriend from 6. I really liked Judy.
Okay, I like it. Yeah.
I liked Judy in 4, especially her scene with Sydney in the hallway or the top of the staircase. She was a little creepy, a little whatever. And I don't know, there was depth there. And I feel like we never really got to. I was so excited for Judy to be in 5, but she was cannon fodder. It was just like, let's get someone to axe off.
And I feel you about Judy because like I love Judy too. I loved her in 4, and so like I think that she actually has an amazing phone call in Scream 5. I think that like the emotion is really there. I think that she was sadly a bit wasted in 5. I wish there was more of her. There's actually a poster out there that has like I'm gonna post that today. I'm gonna post this. It's like it's like a animated painted poster, and it's like a big picture of Sydney and then like Gail and Dewey and Judy's in it, and then Ghostface.
Yeah.
And it's just like, ooh, I want that Scream 5.
Exactly.
So-
Yeah, I've seen that. I love it. That's just like, yeah, the 4's deleted scene of the finale of the trio with her kind of guiding the other 2 inside. I love that moment that her and Sydney have a history that, again, you don't really necessarily tell. And
Yeah.
you could feel it. They might, poor Sydney's been through so much, but she's just like, well, it's nice to see you again, Judy. I always love that moment between those 2 characters.
Yeah, me too. So, well, Lucas, this was so fun. Thank you so much for
Yes.
coming and for this conversation. I got to run, but where can people find you online?
Oh gosh, you could just find me in the comment section of Ryan C. Showers posting a bit, me either, saying yes or a heart or emoji. So yeah, on Instagram I think I don't even know what my at's at. See, I'm just not like, you can find me in the comment section. How about that?
Thanks so much, Luke. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the next segment of Scream with Ryan C. Showers. I'm your host, Ryan C. Showers. Everybody, please welcome my dear friend, Josh Calamari. Hey, Josh.
Hi, honey.
Damn it. I said to myself, I was thinking about this recording and I was like, I'm going to call him Honey because he always calls me Honey and I want to beat him to the punch. And God damn it, I missed it. Dang it. So,
It's just my thing.
well, so Josh, I have a couple of things I want to talk to you about. But first, I want to congratulate you on your health journey that you shared with me and that I shared to the world. And that really nice message you wrote to me. You wrote something to me early January, and so I was very, very touched by that message, and I shared it in the group. So I just wanted to say congratulations to you face to face.
Thanks, honey. I appreciate it. Thanks. It's been a lot of hard work, but thank you.
So let's talk. So first, we didn't prepare for this, but I know that you are a Buffy person, and I'm just curious. What are your thoughts on the fact that Buffy is getting a reboot?
I'm excited, but with a lot of trepidation. I'm just someone that believes that not everything needs to be a remake. When you have something as wonderful as Buffy was, and I grew up, like I was literally a teenager with Buffy, and I brought a couple of things to show you, but I just wanted to show you. Like, this is my magazine collection. This is a Buffy from 1999. I have this for over 25 years. I've been a Buffy fan. I have Buffy trading cards. As long as they do it right, and that's it, and that's really it. As long as they do it right, that's all I care. All I care about.
Let's do show and tell first, and then we'll go into our topic. So, what magazine was it? Can we see it again? I've seen that.
Yeah,
before.
honey, it was Detour.
Detour. Oh my gosh, Buffy slays Hollywood. So that's such a cool look for SMG. That looks like season 4 era. I guess 1999. You said.
Yes, oh, honey, I brought a couple.
Please
I wanted to
me.
show you this. This is from March 1999 Premiere Magazine, Cruel Intentions, and original.
Oh my god.
Yes, honey. Yeah.
It has Sarah, Ryan Phillippe, and Reese Witherspoon. Oh my gosh, Reese does not look like Reese at all there. Wow.
No, and she was 3 months pregnant with Ava.
Oh, wow.
Let me tell you something. Sarah Michelle Gellar and Ryan Phillippe are the couple that we've needed our whole lives. And I prayed to the movie gods that they reunite one day because they were everything for me.
Yeah.
Everything.
They should. I don't know why they don't. Maybe when Sarah's kids are fully grown and she like wants to really act, again in leading roles. I think that it's destined because they're the type of actors that like the chemistry is so natural. It just sizzles.
Oh, don't even go there. Oh, Helen and Gary for life. I don't understand. Oh, Julie James, I find so annoying. But anyways, I love Helen Shivers.
What do you think about are you excited for the new I Know What You Did Last Summer? No. Be honest.
Yes and no.
Yeah.
Yes and no. Yes and no. Yes, I'm excited to see it. But as I said, all this kind of shit that, everything needs to be remade and this and that, as long as it's good, as long as it's good. Yeah. Station.
Well,
That's how
so do you have anything else you want to share physically?
about oh yes, honey.
Okay.
Oh yes. And this is in the plastic. This is an original Scream 2
Oh.
Terry Spelling of 97 Rolling Stone.
Oh my God.
And honey, I couldn't take it out of the plastic even for you, and I would do almost anything for you. But
I,
this is an original.
I love that. That is so cool, Josh. Oh my God.
Yes. And honey, this has nothing to do with Scream, but this is just because you and me both get off on it. 2000 for Queer as Folk.
My heart.
Oh,
I love that
I'm
photo
so
shoot.
sorry. Oh. And then this is the last one, just because this is the best of 1998.
Okay.
And just because this is my favorite picture of all time, and I need to find it. Shit, I didn't. I can't. This is the best picture ever. It's the women of WB.
Nice.
Like Sarah Michelle Gellar, like Charmed, although I wasn't the biggest Charm fan. Kerry Russell. It was love it. I've like 20, 30 magazines that I keep from like the late 90s, early 2000s.
I am like stunned by this revelation. And listener, this video will be available on Patreon. Please go watch it. Like, this is like the most reason to ever go to my Patreon and watch a video is to see Josh's collection. I mean, I've seen a lot of these pictures, not necessarily like the actual magazines themselves. They're just like very small, like not high def pictures of those magazine covers. That is so cool. And I feel like, so my producer Ashley is here with us too. She's just taking notes. But the three of us are just like, we're having a millennial moment right now. 90s millennial moment. Josh.
Honey, I have scrapbooks. The picture of Jada, Sarah Michelle, Courtney, and Nevin Scream 2 on the cover of Entertainment Weekly. Yeah. I didn't save that. That's one of my favorites because Scream 2 is like it for me, but I cut out, put in my scrapbook. Oh, so many Buffy, so many. I was 16, 17 when those movies came out. So I was like it for me.
I love that, and thank you for sharing them with me. That just kind of made my night. That was a shock. So yeah, love that. You'll have to send me some pictures and we can maybe like
I will, honey, of course, 100%
post on Instagram or something. So
okay,
thank you for the Queer as Folk too. I love that picture of Brian and Justin. Oh my God, can't. I'm like
go there,
distracted now. So what is this podcast? This is a Scream podcast. Okay, so my friend Josh, you used to, I mean, so from my recollection, did Scream 5 used to be your number one movie ranked, or was it 2 behind Scream 2?
It was 2, and then it was 5. And I have a very, very, very love-hate relationship with 5. I love it so much.
Mm-hmm.
I love it so much for so many reasons. But after honestly listening to that podcast with that other girl, I forget her name, but she was fucking fabulous.
Jess.
It would made me, and I love listening to it because it was my favorite one you've ever released. Episode, but at the same time I not naive because I just don't look at things like that. I look at it and I like it. And so yeah, Scream 5 is now probably number 3, and I say that with much, which is surprising because I was 18 or 19 when Scream 3 came out, and if we were talking back in 2000, you and me would have probably had a big fight because I was the biggest Scream 3 hater ever.
We would not have had a big fight because
ever. I thought it was
But you know, that's first of all, we wouldn't have had a big fight because you're a really wonderful person. You're a really good friend, and you're very kind to me. Like, you know, as I've gotten older, like I don't really care about opinions in terms of like my opinion has to match my friends. I care about and I value kindness and common, I don't want to say values because that's almost too strong of a word, but common sentiments about things, and just like common, like a spark in the friendship that makes me feel like you care, and just kindness. Like, I think that kindness, I know it sounds so dumb, and you know, you and I are too, as the Gen Zers say, cunty gay men in terms of being shady, but you know, but like I'm talking about kindness. Like, you're such a kind person. Like the fact that you had those magazines to show me tonight, like as a surprise, I was not planning. Like, you are just you know, a really amazing friend. So we would still be friends even if you took a big dump on Scream 3. So many people have, and I'm still friends with them, but not all of them.
Can I just say something really quick? And it's kind of off tangent.
Yeah.
But I just want to say, like, I always tell you this, that I'm like the worst Patreon because like I just am. Like, out of all your Patreon, no, I like literally, like, I'm not a big Scream person. Like, Scream person is like, it's just not, it's never been a big thing for me. And I don't even know how I stumbled upon your podcast, but I did. And you, to me, I know you're a big Scream 3, but to me, I call you to my friends who I call you Ryan Scream 1, because Scream 1 to me is a very good movie. It's a very excellent movie. And Scream 1 to me is your podcast. But I'm a movie person. I grew up Oscars. I got a job at 13 just to support my movie habit of magazines, Entertainment Weekly. Like this was in like mid 90s. Like, so I've always looked at movies of more behind the scenes, more like, so Scream 1 to me is like number 4 on my list, but not because it's bad, but because it was a very good movie. And that's what your podcast is, very good. It's masterful. You know what you're talking about, but you're like the Scream behind it. What Scream means to me is what it did for the horror genre. Is it totally reinvigorated it? And that means more to me than the actual movie. And you creating a safe space for me as a gay man who's 44, who I can come on here and say Scream 6 is a piece of shit, and I can say that, and I can honestly feel comfortable in this space and not feel judged. And if your podcast ended tomorrow, I would just hope that you know that creating a safe space for people to talk about whatever and have different opinions and just it be safe and not be like, fuck you, like you hate Scream 6, like.
Yeah, like,
So that is what it means to me. And that's why I always say I'm the worst, because like all these people that I hear on your podcast are so lovely and you're all so knowledgeable. And my opinions are so vastly different than what from the majority. I don't know. I haven't heard all the podcasts, but I don't know how many people actually like Scream 5. Most people don't like it.
it's complicated. It's very complicated. And I want to do an episode on this, and maybe you can be on that episode. There's somebody who volunteered this topic, but you can be on this episode too about Scream 5, and it's kind of, I think it's a divisive reputation. Like back when it came out, it was a default, like everybody defaulted to loving it. I feel like there was almost like a pressure to like it, or everyone was just so happy that Scream was back. But as time has gone on, a lot of people have second guessed it, and a lot of people have also thought that it's just kind of too plain Jane. And also, a lot of people have kind of just not liked the choices in the way that things were done. And so, I mean, it's not, so it ranks at the bottom for a lot of people, like as the worst. But then I see a lot of people that also have it like in the 2 or 3 spots. So it's I think it's the weirdest movie in the Scream franchise in terms of reputation. And I don't think we're going to really have a settled a view of it until after Scream 7 comes out. And then to see what the future holds, it's just weird because, but I love that. So, going on to Scream 5, because like you brought it up, we wanted to talk about it. Like I'm sorry that my requel essay. So Josh was alluding to the episode, The Death of the Requel, which I guess sounds like a very morbid title to my essay. But Jess Melendez, who was going to, she's always floating around here. I didn't mean to ruin Scream 5 for you. Because I think that there is, I think Scream 5 does have its merits. But I think the requel formula itself is hard. And, let's talk about other movies. Because, I'm trained as a film critic. I love Scream. It's just kind of, I funnel my film critic into Scream, but I'm about it with everything else. Like, The Craft, we did an audio commentary for that. It hasn't released yet. I'm sitting here with you right now, but it will have been released by the time people hear this. And I want to do more. I want to kind of spread my wings like that. But, oh gosh, where was I going with this? Oh, I know what you did last summer. Oh, it's really hard because, like, on the one hand, I'm so happy that Nev Campbell is back as the lead of Scream 7. But then how can I be also equally as excited for I Know What You Did Last Summer when it feels like it's in the past? Like, to me, Scream 5 was like the requel era. Like 3 years ago, that's what was cool back then. So I Know What You Did Last Summer coming out now, right next to Scream 7, where Nev is back, Courtney's back. It just, Kevin is back. It just feels weird. Like we're almost going backward to I Know What You Did Last Summer, and where Julie James is going to be, and Freddie Prinze Jr. will only have a small amount of screen time, only then to go into Scream 7 where it's different. What are your thoughts, Josh?
The thing that changed my mind, and I hope we can talk about Scream 5 a little bit, just because there are some points that I want to bring up, but I like that I Know What You Did Last Summer has told us they are supporting characters. They have a small amount of time. The thing that changed my mind about Scream 5, which I did notice, is when you guys talked about the trailer and they said they used all the parts of Nev and Courtney. And I never, like I said, I never realized that.
Yeah.
I didn't see the trailer until that day. And I would listen. Your podcast is my Saturday. I love Housewives. Shout out to the other guys who like Housewives on here because I love them. Hey, girl, hey, I love them. So I listen to my Bravo cocktails, my gossip from there, and then I listen to my Ryan. I do my 20 laps every Saturday. It's my thing. So, and I went home and I watched the trailer and I was like a knife to my heart. How you feel about Scream 3 is how I felt about Scream 5.
Yeah.
It just ticked all the boxes for me in the right way. And Scream 5, as I said, I come from a movie background, film critic background. I read everything. Scream 5 was set up as a new trilogy with new people.
Yeah.
So Nev and Courtney and David were always going to be supporting characters. They always were. Like there's just can I just say one more thing
Yeah.
that I don't think has ever been brought up on your podcast? Nev, Courtney, and Dave are all smart people.
Yeah.
They would not have signed up to a piece of shit movie. They signed up knowing that they were going to be supporting characters. And Courtney Cox and Nev Campbell, I'm sorry to say this to you, gave the best performance in Scream 5. The minute that they hugged and they embraced, Courtney Cox deserves every award that you should get. Her eyes were so blue, and the way they hugged, it was like all 5 of those movies combusted their passion. They felt the sisterhood. It was amazing. Best performance, best.
Well, I agree with you. I love Courtney Cox's acting in Scream 5. She's the MVP for me. I think the Gale arc is so beautiful. Like, in terms of like, so, and I just kind of want to, because I know you don't like Scream 6, and like I just want to kind of prod you. Like, this is gonna be controversial, but like I agree. Like Scream 5 was supposed to be a new trilogy, and they were supporting roles. That was the requel formula. That everyone knew what they were signing up for then. However, the trailer did sell it to us incorrectly.
And that's what listen, 2 things are going to piss me off a lot. One is when you sell me false goods to a movie. So when you are telling me all of this and you're selling Nev, Courtney, and Dave just to get me in there, fuck you. Two, and this is going to be controversial for you. The thing I love Nev Campbell since 1994 when I started watching Party of 5. Her best acting ever. She is phenomenal. When she sort of shit on Scream 3 and didn't want to do it, and we both know, and because she only did it because of Drowning Mona, I was disgusted. Jamie Lee Curtis is the MVP because she always, I'm going to die. It's going to say Halloween actress, her Oscar speech, all of this. What made me lighten up in the last few years is because Nev has
changed her tune.
Exactly. Yeah. And I can totally respect that. And I don't like when actors, I don't like
it either. And I'm glad. I think that Nev grew into and settled into and became less insecure
100%.
About being a horror actress, and she saw the beauty, and plus horror has changed, so it's all different. Going back to your point though about Scream 5 is like, yes, it was supposed to be a trilogy, but in my opinion, Scream 6, like I actually think Scream 5 ends in a really like great place for the characters, for the story. The quality is there. Like from a film critic perspective, it's there. To go from 5 to 6 from a quality perspective, as from filmmaking, as writing, directing, acting, the way that they use Courtney Cox, like, it just it felt like such a betrayal. And when you have that finale and you have Sam in the robe and you have those killers, like that opening, like, in my opinion, it doesn't warrant a continuation of the storyline. Like, a part of me does kind of wish we had a conclusion where Sam was the main character, but Scream 7 with Sam as the lead, they were probably going to make her go crazy and become the killer. I mean, they basically said that. So in a way, like, yes, there was no trilogy, but like, I think Scream 6, the quality of Scream 6 didn't demand there to finish that story. I think it's actually good that we're getting the pivoting to the H2O new nightmare moment for Sydney in the franchise in the 7th movie. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Honey, I completely fucking agree with you. Scream 6 is a piece of garbage. Like I said, it just really is. I don't care. It just is. And I respect anyone who likes that movie. This is my opinion. I don't read any messages, so don't send them to Ryan. You can find me online. It's mine. Garbage. Samara Weaving. Where do you want to start? Shitty opening. I don't care. Honey, this could have been your Scream 3, Scream 6, but what they did to Gale, automatically. And I still don't understand why Courtney signed on to that movie.
Well, why she signed on? Apparently she was the first one to sign on, and I can understand why she'd want to. She had an amazing storyline in Scream 5. To go from 5, she's in the groove again. She's, in the hit movies again, and I think she signed the dotted line thinking she would be making a movie with Nev, and then everything happened, and the script changed, and so I think the script changed probably from what she was told, verbally, or what, or I know she didn't read it before she signed on, because she did an interview where she talked. I remember her like in March, late March, early April, saying, "Oh, I just got the script and I'll read it when I get to it." But she was already kind of signed on. It is what it is. And I think that's probably why she was such a hard ass with Scream 7, because if you remember, it took a long time for her to become official for Scream 7. And I think her experience with 6 was a result of that. Like, I think she wanted to know that Gail was going to be treated right and well, and that she would be complete and whole. So I like that. So Josh, someone you love is going to be in Scream 7, and that is Mindy Meeks Martin. What are your thoughts on Mindy in Scream 7?
I am excited.
Yeah.
Chad, listen, you're a horror queen. I'm like a princess. Like, horror is not really my thing. But we've seen the jock thing. I've seen the jock thing, been there, done that. Boring. Yes, he's good looking. Yes, he's cute. Yes, he's this. I've seen it. What have we not seen? I was raised by a single mother. I have strong single women in my life. There is nothing hotter than she's a smart, confident, Black, queer woman.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. What they did with her in Scream 6 was laughable. I've only ever seen that movie once, and I will never watch it again.
But, she was amazing in Scream 5. I actually think Kevin will bring out the best in her, and I'm interested to see what she's going to do in Scream 7. And Josh, I'm sure you agree with this, but, I think it's also, isn't it interesting just how it all ended up? Like, if you would have asked me like 3 years ago, if you could only have 4 characters in a Scream 7 where Sydney's the lead, who would you pick? I would not have said the characters we ended up with. I would have said, Nev, Courtney, Patrick, and maybe, I don't know who maybe Melissa. I don't know. But the fact that we ended up with Gail and Sydney and the 2 Meeks, I feel like now it is perfect. It makes sense. It is like, it just feels like this is what it was meant to be. And a lot of that has come from Mindy, but also like there are a couple people who really love Mindy in the Patreon. My friend Taz is one of them, and you're another one. And you have kind of made me really like see beyond the flaws of Mindy from Scream 6. And like see the greatness in her and the promise of what she could do in a Scream 7 with Nev and Courtney and Mason. So what are your thoughts
about her in Scream 7?
Or just about like the fact that like Scream 7, there's it's going to be Nev, Courtney, Jasmine, and Mason, and not like, do you think that that's in the way that like I kind of described, like I would never have guessed that those are the 4 people we ended up with of all of the survivors we have, because not only Sam and Tara, but we have Kirby, Kincaid, other people. I would never have guessed that this would be the foursome, but it makes sense as the foursome because we have the movie buff, we have like the the leading man type, and we have our final girl in Sydney, and we have our reporter in Gail Weathers. It just feels like, I just love this idea of like Mindy and Chad having a more permanent place in the franchise that isn't connected and handcuffed to Sam and Tara. I think that this is actually going to be really cool for them.
Honey, listen, we got Nev, Courtney, and Kevin.
Yeah.
Anything above that is great.
Yeah.
And all these people, I don't listen to all this bullshit chatter about, we didn't get Melissa, thank God. We don't have Jenna, who thinks she's bigger than, her new movie, Death of a Unicorn, was a complete bomb. So, who cares? Bye. Patrick Dempsey. I've always said, honey, I don't get it. I don't understand his big appeal. And let me tell you something. Scream 7, he needs Scream 7 more than we need him. Period. And this will be, his acting sucked in Scream 3. Like, he was not that, and I know you do. I know you love him and everyone loves him. I'm excited for Joel McHale. If you watch Yellow Jackets, he is fabulous. And I know this, that Jasmine filmed at least 2 weeks of Scream 7, which means she's going to have a decent part.
Yeah. And I think Joel McHale said that he filmed with her. So I just think that I think it's going to be cool. You know what I want to see? I want to see the imagery of like Sydney and Gail with the Meeks. I just think that's going to be so cool. And I really hope that there's no forced BS, like with like, in Scream 6, I think that the core 4 was forced. I think, Jenna didn't even share scenes with Mason and Jasmine in Scream 5. And Melissa barely shared scenes with them too. So it's just weird that they all, to force this idea. I just think it would be so cool to see those 4 characters with their history in the franchise, in this new iteration of it. It's just so cool. And I agree with what you said. And like honestly, we do need to underline this because no one will talk about it. Jenna Ortega's Death of a Unicorn, which I saw, I didn't like it, but it flopped bad. Like, so and here's the thing, like, about Scream 6 and I'm sorry, Scream 7 in the box office, people have said that like, oh, it's gonna do terribly because Jenna Ortega isn't involved in Jenna Ortega is the reason Scream 6 did so well. Death of a Unicorn made $5 million its opening weekend, and it was in complete wide release, 3,000 theaters across North America. $5 million over a weekend. Like, are you like? This is apparently the girl who is the movie star, right? I think that I think this dispels that, and I think that it shows that like that whole thing to dig at Scream 7 is wrong. So, Josh,
Listen, Winona Ryder is the love of my life. How you feel about Nev Campbell's how I feel about Nev Campbell. Listen, she had Beetlejuice. And let's see, were they talking about Jenna and Beetlejuice? No, it was Winona, Michael, and Catherine O'Hara. So who cares? Who cares? These people think that they're so much bigger than Scream, and fine, move on. But that's the thing is when you raise your middle finger to something. Scream brought those two, Melissa and Jenna, gave them a wider audience. And after Scream 7, after Scream 5, like just the way they've acted, like they act like they're better than, and that's what I don't like. Melissa's,
Well-
God, don't get me started on like.
and can we just expand it not only to them but also to Radio Silence, where they were handed a huge opportunity with 5, and by the time that 6 came around and they were promoting it, it just felt awkward. Like their promotion of 6, you probably don't even know what I'm talking about, but they were kind of icy, distant when they were promoting 6. Like you could tell they didn't want to be there.
Why wouldn't they be? They made a shit movie. I would be too. You're putting that out into the universe?
Well, but like
That's disgusting.
I do, I will say, like, I think that, so basically, I think by the time Scream 6 came out, I think Radio Silence knew and Jenna knew that they had no interest in being in Scream 7. Like like you were saying, like there was almost like a little bit of an air like, oh, we want to go on to do bigger and better things. And like that kind of left a real big mess. And I think everything that's happened since has been as a result of those decisions. But I think that Nev and Kevin and Courtney have cleaned up the place in a great way. So I'm very hopeful for Scream 7, and it'll be so cool. So Josh, you are such a character. I love you so much. This was like I had genuine laughter, genuine smiles. So gosh, my heart is warm. I want you to be on that Scream 5 episode because my thesis for that is like investigating like the specific divisive nature of Scream 5 right now and how people, and I think that you're kind of the perfect person because you were a true believer in Scream 5, and and like I think that you still do love it. It's just complicated by the fact that we were lied to about it, and other stuff, so but
Can I ask you, because you're a Sydney lover. You love her. She's like your number one. Gail for me will always be it. I hope in Scream, that's the thing I hope in Scream 7 we get more about Gail. Listen, in Scream 5, look what we got.
Yeah.
It was the perfect end for Sydney. When she was sitting on there and saying, I'm good. Her whole arc in Scream 5 was the perfect arc. It was the perfect. She wasn't going to come back to play these child games. She was not. She only came back because her brother was murdered. And that was it. And Scream 5 at the end was Gail's movie. Scream 5 is the only time in the finale where Gail has been there the whole time. She's either been shot, killed, clear, all those other movies. She was there right at the beginning. And Nev Campbell was a supporting person. And then Sydney was a supporting person to Gail. And it was perfect. Her, I don't have time for this shit attitude was perfect.
Well,
it was perfect.
Sydney and Gail are pretty equal for me. I love them both. I love them both about equally. Like, I think, like, in the original trilogy, I think I prefer Sydney, but like overall in the series, I think I prefer Gail. It's hard. They're literally like neck and neck for me. And
but don't you love Sydney's arc in Scream 5?
I do.
Like it's the perfect ending. It's like in Scream 3 when she opens the fence, you can feel her freedom.
Yeah.
You can feel that she's free. You can feel like she's supporting Gail, saying, "Here, I could have my moment and
here it is.
Blast
Here's the
bitch
gun.
in the head.
Yeah.
Here, it's your turn. Dewey was yours."
Yeah. And I love that. It's such a beautiful moment for them as sisters, for Sydney as a person to give Gail that.
Yep.
And just for Gail to have that moment of revenge or, vindication, so I don't know. But no, I agree with everything that you're saying. And like, if, if the series had ended at Scream 5 and that's where we ended things, I think that would have been a fine ending. But I still think that there is some story to tell with her family. So we'll see. And I'd be interested to track the way that you feel about Scream 7, as we get the trailer, and then once you see it, and then once you let it digest, I'll be interested to see how your opinion goes. So, but
what's something very ironic?
Yeah.
Is that I'm probably like your worst patron, like the least like Scream person, but Scream 7 comes out on my birthday. Isn't that ironic?
It is.
That's what the funny thing is, and that'll be my 45th birthday. So
I love.
That's a little ironic.
First of all, happy early birthday. We're counting down to your birthday just on this podcast.
That's pretty. I think I was pretty ironic myself.
I'm taking that as a good omen. So let's embrace it.
Honey, we're in a year of like, you as a movie person know that we are in streaming now. Box office doesn't mean what it did now. People are begging people to go to theaters.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't matter if Scream 7 doesn't make a shit ton of money. Like, it doesn't matter anymore. It's all about the streaming. It's all this other minutia and bullshit around like box office. And I hope we have 3 people in it. Let's all just be happy with that.
Yeah.
I'm just happy with that. Whether we got Mindy or Chad or, thank God the Carpenter people are gone, but everything that we have, that's what we should be happy for. And I really honestly mean that. Anything else, I don't care about. I don't know anything that's going on with Scream 7. I don't look. I don't want to know. I want to be surprised.
It will be a birthday surprise.
We had one website in 99, 2099. We had one, I think it was screamtrilogy.net. That was the one Scream site that we had. That was it. And they wouldn't leak anything. They didn't leak pictures. We would gossip about it. That was it. I don't want to know anything.
Well, I respect that, and I just love the fact that Scream 7's coming out on your birthday. So,
thanks, honey.
Josh, we are going to do that Scream 5 episode in a couple of weeks, like this spring or summer. I think it'll be fantastic. Josh, thank you so much.
All copyrighted material used or referenced in this show belong to their rightful owners and made possible by the Fair Use Act.
And number 3. Never, ever, ever, under any circumstances, say, I'll be right back. Because you won't be back.
Get another beer, you want one?
Yeah, sure.
I'll be right back!